Welcome back to One Winning Pod. Guys, made it back from a lot of travel the last couple of weeks. Sorry I couldn't make it to the podcast last week, recapping the Steelers game, but I'm here, I'm back. We're here to talk about the game against the Houston Texans, where the Ravens had a 31-2 beatdown in Houston. Guys, how are we feeling about it, that game after this?
Look, we've expected the Ravens to be able to run the ball in this game. They did, much different than the Giants game where we expected they would, and they did, a fine amount, but not to the tune they were expecting. But yeah, this was big. They hit my bold prediction: 200+ yards between Lamar and Derrick Henry, and this game was over by the first drive. It really felt like, and much easier victory than we were expecting. I think I expected Houston to put up a better fight than they did. Stroud just looked out of sorts all day. Didn't really seem to have good touch on his passes. But the defense was playing lights out as well. So an incredibly promising win that, makes you feel good.
It does make you feel good. We're still rolling. Ever since the bye week, things have been looking quite promising. And I will say, I agree with you, Peter. The game started off and it just felt like a different tone. The ability for us to just gash them on the ground game and score with relative ease. They just seemed outmatched from the get-go. It never changed. There was never any signs of life. They didn't score any points. We only gave them 2 points. So it was just a total knockout. I think people are going to stop inviting us over for Christmas Day. We can't keep being this kind of guest. Maybe the Ravens will play on Christmas Day. That would be an absolutely soul-crushing for my relationship. I would have to find a lawyer in advance so I can see that on the on the schedule. But hopefully, no Christmas games in Baltimore for a while, and we can just stop doing this whole Christmas thing. Feels like the world's seen enough of the Ravens on Christmas.
Yeah. 2 years in a row of these matchups, and San Francisco last year and Houston this year, just like total beatdowns. I tell you what, it was great to watch on replay. I couldn't watch the whole thing live, but because I was traveling that day. But watching the replay of it, I didn't even get a whole lot of text from you guys because I was traveling, so I just didn't look at my phone. But once I got to a stop and was able to look at my phone, it was like, oh, okay, it's going to be a nice rewatch when I get home. So, but you guys bring up a great point though. Of just like I kind of want to talk about the run game first. This honestly, I felt like the game was won in the trenches on both sides. Offensive line. I really like watching the replays of a lot of like the trap runs that they were running. Like there was that one play with Henry had that 20-yard gain up the middle. Probably could have been a touchdown if he would have got past another guy. Like you look at all those, like all the blocks hit. Every single one of them. They just, Houston defensive lines trying to cut a field. All of them are blocked absolutely perfectly. There's like gaps everywhere. Henry could have taken like 3 different ways and gotten the same amount of yards. And, I think that was just like a great example of a play that just, the Ravens just executed really, really well. And Houston just didn't have answers for them.
It was another beautiful day of run and pass blocking. I ended up doing the show with Ken McCusick, and the offensive line graded really well. Stanley with a B, McCary with an A, Linderbaum with a B, Valele with an A, and his best game to date as guard. And then Rosengarten got a C, mostly driven by those QB hits and pressures. But still, not an awful game from Rosengarten, who had back-to-back weeks of excellent games. So the offensive line's clicking. It was great to see him make those holes. There was a lot of posts after the fact of like just seeing everyone like a hat on a hat on all those running lanes. And that's what was so apparent, right? Every time we ran the ball, the success rate was through the roof. I think, I know every time Lamar touched the ball, either a pass or a run play, it averaged 12 yards a play, which is absolutely absurd. And then Henry, when he ran, I think was 5.6-ish yards per carry. Lamar was astronomical. 20, I think, or something yards per carry. It's just nuts. I had a note here that Lamar ran for 76 yards on 2 carries. I said, maybe things are going all right.
It was definitely a quality over quantity for him running the ball. And it just started out with, there's just so much good blocking this game, which was incredible to see. We talked about it against the Giants. the blocking was fine. We wanted to see improvements, and we did see improvements against Pittsburgh, but still, maybe not quite exactly what you wanted to see. And in this game, I mean, some of it was, how Houston was defending, the formations they were lining up in, but still, I mean, guys were really getting in the trenches in the run game, and it wasn't just the offensive line. I mean, the receivers, you had some great blocks there by Bateman out there. Ricard had a really good game blocking, I felt. I understand what we're saying about the criticisms with Rosengarten's game in this one, but, I think he made several incredible plays too. When it came to blocking, had a lot of blocks, legally downfield for some of Henry's bigger runs. If this is the way the offensive line can perform throughout the postseason, we're going to just see this offense be in every single game. Now, I think some of the pushback here is, we knew that Houston's front seven was beat up. We knew that this was a matchup that this group should look like that. But still, I think it's encouraging still, whenever you see the units perform as they should in these circumstances, it's promising that they'll at least be, adequate, you would hope, in tougher matchups going forward.
Oh yeah, I mean, but even with a position group like that beat up, like I think the offensive efficiency, I think, just continues to be really fantastic. I felt like the game script for me kind of went like, run game came out of the gate looking really, really good. And then honestly, it kind of felt like Houston oversold to try and stop that. And that's when you just saw like 1 or 2 play drives ending up in huge plays for touchdowns. I mean, looking at like the receiving, the passing game side of things, right? Nobody finished with more than 2 receptions. Lamar only had 10 on the day. So, but you look at a few of them, you have like that huge pass to Andrews, you have like the huge run from Lamar. Like you have all these plays that like, 1, 2, 3, score, get off the field, right? And so, yeah, I think, despite Houston being beat up, like, I feel like that doesn't fully explain it. Like, I feel like, basically, like, I guess we kind of like punched them in the mouth. They toppled over and basically couldn't recover. So yeah, it was just, I think, like a masterclass, both in just, execution and just, being able to finish.
The Ravens now have 10 touchdown drives over 90 yards this season. The second highest in the league is 5. And it kind of just goes to show you, even when they got really poor field position. One time they gave up the safety, but the other time they scored a touchdown, and that was the situation you were talking about with the big pass to Andrews. He gets caught, but he did that so that we could get grace with another top X Lamar play where you think it's going to be in his Hall of Fame film, but he just keeps making plays, so you don't really know for sure. With extending the play, and finding likely open in the end zone for a touchdown. Those two have such a connection on those kind of scramble plays, and I think that's what's impressive. We got to give credit to these pass catchers for being able to participate in the off-schedule play of Lamar. That's how you're able to get 10 completions in a game and an MVP champ. High efficiency, big plays. Just really incredible stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the efficiency was incredible for the passing game in this matchup. Only 15 attempts for Lamar in this game, 10 completions, 2 touchdowns, only sacked once, and just every pass that was completed was, a big play for the most part. And it's incredible to see the pass catchers here just continuing to just flourish. We're seeing a lot of, it's getting kind of ridiculous, the MVP debate on Twitter, as everything on Twitter is, of course, but the greater NFL community is now seeing this passing offense as having threats, like, outside of just Flowers and Andrews. Isaiah Likely and Rashad Bateman, I feel like, are getting a lot of respect from the greater NFL community as legitimate receiving options that defenses have to, account for, which is just, incredible. Of course, all these years, us as Ravens fans have toted these guys and spoke of their potential, but to finally see them do it in the and actually put it together so that, yeah, the whole league is on notice. It's been what we've been waiting for from this offense,
Peter, just to like really show off what you were saying here, excluding the one pass to Anthony Miller for 16 yards, another big play, which by the way made him surpass Deontay Johnson on the Ravens all-time receiving yard list. Little underknown stat from this game, but you had an 18-yard pass for the long, 28, 68, 31, 16, 12, 9, ho-hum, but that was a touchdown. And then 2 yards by Tylan Wallace, the only guy that didn't have an explosive play with his single catch. It was Christmas, and Lamar wanted to give everybody, at least one thing under the tree. And most of them, they were pretty good gifts for Tylan.
Yeah, he got the white elephant gift.
Tez Walker, sad.
A pair of socks.
Yeah. There was not enough room on the banister for his stocking.
Oh, man. Yeah. Walker had a shot, but that was a tough catch, but still.
Yeah.
Yeah. That, hey, that's kind of good to see, though. I think I feel like they're trying to make that connection happen, and honestly, like I think that's probably an element of Lamar's game that we really haven't seen too much, probably since Hollywood's been here, of like those deep passes down the sideline. It's not really like Zay or Bateman's MO to kind of like have those contested catches, but I mean they were pretty dang close to getting that with Tez Walker, so I would not be surprised to see another one of those plays probably in Cleveland. And maybe one of them will hit in the playoffs. So, yeah, I'm glad they brought it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's still so hard to figure out what he's going to be at the NFL level. And the main reason he's getting this shot is because Deontay didn't want to play, and now Aguilar is in concussion protocol. But still, just to see that they're even still getting him some targets, and he's not just out there blocking. It's not much, but the fact that he's getting involved at all, I think gives us a tiny window to, some of the stuff in practice that we're not privy to is moving in somewhat of a positive direction. He's a guy when he's out there, you look at him, you like his size. I agree with what you're saying. He's a guy who looks like he has the ability to be a contested catch guy, a guy who can high point the ball with his height there. So we'll see. I mean, it doesn't look like it's going to be this year, but maybe next year he can be a guy who can slowly get his way into a solid role in the offense. So
I agree. I think another highlight of younger player is Keaton Mitchell getting opportunity with Hill out for this game in concussion protocol, and then Rasheen Ali got hurt as well. Keaton Mitchell's stats are a little deceiving because a lot of his rushing attempts were in garbage time, and one of his long of 7 was a nice run, but there was a -6 play that decreased his stats pretty substantially, and that was the failed draw where Rosengarten got beat. So I really liked what I saw though in the one reception, obviously for 28 yards. I thought he was good at pacing his run and then accelerating once the blocks were set up, and excited to see what he can bring to the offense in the final stretch here. I know that Hill, once he's available, will surely take up most of the snaps, but I still think Keaton might have a kind of similar to Tez Walker, a couple opportunities a game to show off what he can do, and hopefully their impact plays.
Well, if he's healthy to go, I mean, even with Justice Hill back there, it just takes one play for this guy with his playmaking ability to make an impact on the game, right? So he could definitely be a wild card that could be something that defensive coordinators, aren't really expecting, right? Because there's no film on him in the offense this year. They bring out some packages for him, or there's a play where he's out there on a screen or something. That could be impactful, and then could be a nice little wrinkle to add to the offense in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, we kind of forget he only had 47 attempts in his rookie season for 396 yards, and now he has 11 attempts on this season. I feel like we've barely seen him. So imagine how many big plays he was able to make in those 47 that we remember so fondly. So yeah.
Wow, that's wild. 47. Yeah, I mean, I guess he didn't come on until a couple games in the season, and
right.
then
he only had
for that like 4 or 5 game stretch. That was high usage. Yeah.
Yep. 8 games, 2 starts. So yeah, Keaton was and he was like getting barely any snaps. It was really once he had those breakouts, and I was like, every time this guy touches the ball, he goes for like 40 yards. What are we doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, despite all the positive things, I feel like we got to bring it up. It was almost a shutout, except for one play. Obviously, the safety. Henry was trying to get it out of the end zone. Ended up taking a step back, and then just ending up getting tackled in the end zone from one of the cornerbacks making a tackle. It was a good play made by him, but otherwise, it's kind of a little bit of a blemish, I think, on Henry's day and the team's day. I think so. I'm sure the guys gave him a little bit of a ribbing after the game for that as well.
I'm sure no one's harder on him than himself, based on some of the comments he's made in previous games where he's had blunders. But yeah, man, it was pretty inexcusable, frankly. I'm hoping that he can learn from it and not make that mistake in the playoffs. It's one of those things, like, if you had to make that mistake, I guess make it now. But it was pretty bad, man. That and the Stanley illegal man downfield that negated the 16-yard pass to Zay Flowers were the two kind of like, mental lapses in this game that really hurt the Ravens. Because, I mean, Stanley was on the opposite side of the field. there was no block he was going to make that like substantially, improved the outcomes of that play. But it sure did impact, obviously, the 16-yard catch, which is a big bummer. So, yeah, I think those were the two mental lapses and things to grow from. Honestly, there was like really nothing else to comment on.
Yeah, from the offensive standpoint, absolutely not. It was just a perfect game. And, efficient passing, efficient rushing. If all defenses are going to play the Ravens like this in the playoffs, then it's going to be an easy trip to the Super Bowl. I don't think that's what's going to happen, but the Ravens had an advantage in the trenches and running the ball. They took that. Now, if the Texans had stopped that, it might have been a slightly different game because the Texans secondary, like we were talking about, a lot of talented guys there who've had good seasons. That might have been a little closer of a game, and if the Ravens do have to play them again in the playoffs, that'll be something to watch out for. But, at least how the Texans defense game planned this offense, it was exactly allowed for the Ravens to do exactly what they like to do. And, yeah, I think we can move on to the defense now at this point.
Sure, let's do it. The offensive line we knew had issues going into this game. Stroud was put on the ground 5 times. He was hit too much for me to add up at this moment, but he was hit a lot as well. Only completed 17 out of 31 attempts for 185 yards. Eventually got benched for Mills because the game was out of hand. And realistically, Stroud only had one drive that the offense looked like, they might go and score. Otherwise, they were just completely bottled up. And on that drive, it looked like it was over. Maybe a field goal would happen. And then there was that PI on Humphrey that I thought was phantom. Very poor call. And then I really appreciate, though, the ability for the defense to stand their ground. 2 huge plays back-to-back from Humphrey again, to stop on 3rd down. And then AD came in, Ardarius yet again, with a big hit on 4th down to not let him into the end zone and, allow us to get a safety.
Man, he came in for that play, man. He just flew in for that. That was a very fun one to watch, man. But yeah, Marlon had a big hand in slowing down the receiver there as well. And man, I mean, Marlon Humphrey, man, just him and Stanley this year have been so critical. And in some ways, I think outside of Lamar and Henry, those 2 guys have been the team MVPs this year because there was a lot of talk in the offseason about how those 2 had really struggled last year through injuries. There was talk about would they be replaced, and both of them have stepped up and really had throwback years this year. And in some ways, I've seen Marlon as really the leader, the player leader of this defense as they've gone through a very difficult transition of figuring out how to play in this new scheme, what players are going to play where. And really, at this point, it really looks like this defensive unit has come into form. And I think we're talking about it from a player's perspective, Humphrey may be the guy that we can look at the most as a veteran leader on this team, whose play has been outstanding this year, who's been the most critical in keeping this ship afloat and getting it to a point now where, this defense, since the game against the Steelers in Pittsburgh, has been one of the best defenses in the league.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, Marlon has been having a fantastic season this year. And I mean, it's not just like the little things of like the little breakups and everything, but he's adding a lot of the, interceptions back into the repertoire. Where, he had that early on with, that one season where he got a bunch of forced fumbles, and you thought like, hey, maybe it might be a Peanut Tillman, and that kind of tapered off a little bit, but yeah, this year he's kind of brought it all back and just has had a knack for making the really big plays in key situations. So um, yeah, I think a great point. I think he's been playing really, really well. It's great to see now. Obviously, like the rest of the defense is also like gelling. So like even early in the season when he was struggling a little bit, like Marlon was still playing well, but it's just a little bit harder to see when everything else is not going so well. So but yeah, I totally agree, man. Both those guys, I think, are really, some of the keys to success this year. And, when you think about it, like, at the end of the day, like, you have to have that, right? You have to have like your superstars. You have to have like the A, B tier players playing really well. You need to have your rookies playing really well. And hopefully you have enough of them playing really well to, get to a Super Bowl and win it.
Yeah, a lot of the stars of the defense showed up in this game. Kyle Hamilton with the pick, Roquan with the sack, Van Noy with the sack, Matt BK with a sack, Owe with a sack, and then of course Chris Board also even got a sack in this game. Mixon was held at 26 yards, never got going. It was just, Nico Collins, 6 targets, 3 catches for 59 yards. Nothing too substantial there. Most of those yards were on a 30-yarder. They just never were able to get that rhythm. And I misspoke. It was actually after the punt, the safety happened, and then they had the turnover on downs, and then we scored after the long pass to Andrews, and then the likely thing. So very cool. I feel like that was the moment in the game where they had the safety. You thought maybe they would have some momentum, but no momentum.
No, I mean the Ravens had good coverage all game. The pass rush was very good this game. Kyle Van Noy, just great to see him getting back in the groove as far as getting to the quarterback and getting sacks. In the beginning of the year, he had that 3-game stretch of Vegas through Buffalo where 2 sacks in each of those games, and then the next 8 or so games, 7 I believe, only 1 sack over that period. But starting with the Chargers game, the last 4 games, at least a sack in each of those. So great to see him kind of get rejuvenated here after the middle of the season, fell off a little bit, and rounding in great for the postseason. Like we said last podcast, he's at a career high in sacks. The Ravens are doing a great job with keeping him fresh, it would appear, in his age 33 season. So we're going to need him. We're going to need him to rush the passer. Odafe Owe got a sack in this one. He's been a little inconsistent this year, but when he's been on, he's been on. Out BK is starting to get to the quarterback more. This pass rush is starting to show really good signs of being playoff ready, and hopefully that'll continue.
Yeah, I think they'll have a good test next week. I think against the Browns. Obviously, I think they've struggled against them a little bit. They've had a generally good offensive line. That's the thing I guess I take away from this game of like, Houston had a little bit more injuries there, and then again, like I think this is a matchup that I think the Ravens came in and kind of like punched them, and they just were not able to recover. So I don't think this is the best game as like a measuring stick to say where the pass rush is, but I do agree they're trending up. Obviously, it's not just this game; it's the last couple of games. I think they've been looking fairly good. But yeah, I mean, we'll have to see how they close it out. But um, otherwise, like I really did like a lot of the linebacker blitz they had. You said that Roquan was able to get a sack. Chris Board was able to get a sack. I mean, Chris Board when he came in was kind of just a straight shot, but able to make sure that he corralled Stroud before he was able to get loose. So I do like to see that. I think that there's there's definitely some pros I think to some of those plays, but yeah. I was just trying to think. There was one play in particular I wanted to mention, and I can't remember what it is. Alec, maybe if you go, I'll see if I can remember it later.
I mean, the only other thing I really want to talk about was Tucker's 52-yard field goal. Another straight down the middle field goal from a distance. Is he so back?
back for now. Hey man, like it's good to see. I mean, it was really rough for a while. I feel like I don't know. I mean, I feel like the confidence has been shaken a little bit. But I mean, it's good that it's the more games that it continues to happen where he's able to make all of his kicks and it makes some really really either high pressure situation ones or in this case make a like long field goal. Like I feel like some of the confidence does get back, but it will take a while I think for it to be like back.
What I really hope, and so many kickers have talked about this. ESPN had a really interesting article a couple weeks ago talking about, some of the fringe kickers the guys who have been getting picked up by teams over the past couple years and just for a game or two. And, it was interesting reading about how they prepare for that and, what they have to do to be ready for that and kind of break through. I think that the kicker for the Lions was highlighted pretty well in that article. Badgley, that's his name, I think, who's having a career year. Sorry, not Badgley. Badgley's the one who's hurt. Bates is the kicker. But anyways, I digress. It's so mental, right? It's one of the most mental positions in sports, I think. And I think a late bye week may have actually really helped a struggling Tucker because I think that you now have such a compressed season in the second half. It feels like a much shorter time to like stay focused on something like that when you have so many, factors that whatever it is that he ran into that was messing up, his kicks. It feels like I have some confidence here that he's back and he's going to be able to pull his weight throughout the entirety of the postseason. Now, if we need him to kick like a 57-yard plus, I don't know. I don't know if I feel confident that he can still do that at this age. But anything under 55, what I've seen with the two kicks he's had over the past 2 weeks, I mean, looks like really good form and as close down the middle as you can get. So I think he's back.
You want to do MVPs? Chris, did you think of the play?
I did not. No.
Oh well.
But I think it was good discussion topic to go over to Tucker. I think it's good we included him in the shout out. So yeah, let's do MVPs.
I don't mind starting. I'll give it to Kyle Hamilton with the pick. I like seeing that so much. I felt like a nice nail in the coffin sort of moment as well. And he's really transformed our defense. I think he's one of him and Ardarius are obviously the big reasons that defense went from not great to one of the best in the league. I truly feel like we're kind of back to you're not going to score more than 20 points feeling about this defense. And with the complementary football and the way we play on offense, I feel like it's a very winning formula. So it gets me very excited about our prospects.
Great one. Yeah, I'm going to go defense as well for mine. And I'm going to give it to a guy we already talked about a bit, Marlon Humphrey, man. And I think it's funny, despite the fact that the Ravens ended up winning this game by 29 points, like I think it is the right call to go defense for the MVP here because it still took the Ravens offense till one, just under the 2-minute warning to score that second touchdown in the game and then really put the game out of reach. It was 10-2 for a good bit in this game. And I think, if the defense hadn't performed as well as they had, you're looking at a much tighter game that the Ravens still probably would have won, but, probably not as comfortably. So great game from Marlon Humphrey within a great year that he's had this year.
Nice. I feel like there's not one guy I'll pick out here, so I'll just say offensive line. But obviously
Nice.
Pick your names, right? Stanley, Linderbaum, anybody else. But like like we talked about in the top, like the holes were there. I think they executed really well. Penalties have been cut down. I think that was also a huge part of it. So shout out O-line.
Well, the whole team is coming from a longer week of rest. Played on Wednesday of all days. Playing on Saturday, because of course they are. This week coming up against Cleveland Browns, it will be at home. It'll be against Dorian Thompson-Robinson, maybe, or Zappy. No one knows for sure. Maybe Winston. Who knows what they're going to do at quarterback, but it doesn't really matter. They're the number 32 team in the NFL in Davila. There are 32 teams in the NFL, so they are the worst. I love the way that Peter put this. They went to Miami, or Miami came to them rather in the cold, and the team most allergic to the cold made look like superstars. Tyler Huntley pulled his best Lamar impression as a pro. And yeah, I mean, this team is in total shambles. They don't have Chubb. He got hurt again, so his recovery, and then he got hurt again. It's just very weak right now, and it was embarrassing to lose to them the first time. This time we'll be at home. This time the team's a little bit more put together. Sure shouldn't happen again.
100%. I mean, how do we break down this game, honestly, without being like the only way that the Ravens don't win this game is if, they just don't show up. I mean, Cleveland, yes, they already beat the Ravens this year, but that was with Jameis Winston. Winston, of course, has his flaws as a quarterback. That's why he's not a starter, but he's a guy that is going to chuck and he's going to make plays with his arm, and you'll win with Jameis as your starter if you don't have turnovers. And the Ravens had opportunities for turnovers against Winston, but dropped them, as we talked about plenty after that game. Dorian Thompson-Robinson hasn't shown at this point in his NFL career that he can make plays at all in the passing game. Put it lightly. Bailey Zappi, same thing. You look at the running game, Jerome Ford is a fine running back, but he's not a guy who's going to, take over a game like a Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry, without a passing game. So I expect Cleveland's defense to be tough. They're talented. Myles Garrett is still there. And, I could see them slowing down the Ravens offense to an extent, but I mean, even if the Ravens offense doesn't clear 20 points, but at least scores like, say, 17, I can't see the Browns putting up more than that.
Yeah, especially this past week against Miami. They had a good bit of pass catchers out, right? Njoku was out, Tillman was out. You guys mentioned Chubb has been out for a while, so I can't remember if they had made the Amari Cooper trade at that point, but he's obviously not there. He's with the Bills. So yeah, I mean, just in terms of what other weapons do the Browns have in offense? Judy, I guess.
He did have 94 yards last week.
Yeah. No, I mean, he's definitely, he's been having a good season, probably, a lot of it due to the volume that he has been getting after, Cooper was traded. But yeah, I mean, other than that, like, we'll have to see what the health of Njoku and Tillman, but, their slate of pass catchers is pretty thin. So I kind of agree with that. Yeah. If the Ravens are able to score more than a 17, like, I would hope that would be enough. I mean, if it's not, like, that's really unacceptable for a team where they are right now of, coming out of this 3-game stretch, just dominating teams and then losing the Browns. Like, that would be a huge, huge stinker.
It'd be such a huge stinker too going into the playoffs. You maybe fumble away a home playoff game, mattering on what happens in the evening slate. The Ravens are projected, currently the spread's 18 points. Bonkers. And if you build that in, it's like looking like a 31 to 13-ish game. Kind of what you're saying, Chris. Like 17 points should do the job. You hope for a lot more. And you think about the 13 points and you think about just playing Houston. How do these points come? It would have to be, garbage time or great field position gifts, things of that nature. You just don't know how they're going to pull these kind of things together. I always kind of hate doing these shows because if you're right, of course you were. Everyone's saying that they were going to destroy. If you're wrong, how cocky and arrogant, It's just like you can't really win. But like, frankly, guys, we should win this game. Everyone, like, I'm seeing people trying to sell their tickets. I think everyone thinks they're going to win this game, and like it's moderately cold, and fair weather fans. So, it's just one of those things where I think the Ravens are going to take care of business here, and anything short of that, it's kind of like the Giants preview all over again. Like anything short of winning the game in a solid fashion would be a little disappointing. And that's where we're at. But let's make it clear. The stakes are high. You win this game and you win the AFC North, right? So it gives you a home playoff game. and it sets you up really well. It sets you up dramatically better. There's like a outside chance of an AFC Championship game coming to Baltimore. So, can hope for the best.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess, to put a little more into perspective of Cleveland, they have 3 wins on the year. One of them is against us. We have to acknowledge that. That was also a game the Ravens had a good shot of winning. So there's a lot we could.
So many times.
Yeah. But since the Browns won that game, they have played. Let me count here quickly. 8 separate games. Only winning one of them, the Snow Bowl back on Thursday, November 21st. The rest of them were losses, and most of them not pretty. So they also have only have one road win on the year. That was in week 2 against Jacksonville, a team who has struggled mightily throughout the season. So, all things on paper say the Ravens should win this, and they will have the number 3 seed in the playoffs doing that. All they have to do is win the game. Wouldn't matter what happens with Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. Now, if the Ravens do get the number 3 seed, we still will not know for certain who they'll play. It will most likely be the Chargers. But if the Bengals the Bengals beat the Steelers and the Chargers beat the Raiders, then the Steelers would drop to the 6th seed with the Chargers going 5, and we'd have a rematch of a couple of weeks ago, Ravens-Steelers. So not sure which fans would prefer. I think both of those teams present unique challenges. Anytime you play teams for a third time, things can get dicey. And the Chargers, well, I'm sure Jim wants to finally beat his brother in an NFL game. So, and then if the Ravens do lose to the Browns and the Steelers win, then you're the 5th seed and you're going back to Houston, where we saw the Ravens did a pretty darn good job of getting out of there. So really, in all 3 situations, I think the Ravens would be favored in any 3 of those game matchups.
Yeah, Peter, I think this is a appropriate time to speculate, because by the time you hear from us next, the game will have been played and we'll know who we're playing in the playoffs. So it's time to speculate about seeding and rankings. My preferred happy path would be Ravens at home against the Chargers, beat Harbaugh again, go to Buffalo, beat the Bills, and then go to Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs, as it always was meant to be. Right? Kind of ever since week 1, it felt like that was the path. But we'll see, right? Also, like, little side effect, right? I know they're supposed to base MVP on the regular season, but I do not know when the vote is actually cast. I can't imagine a Bills-Ravens game doesn't taint the vote if it is after the fact. Like, that would absolutely decide it, right?
Potentially. I mean, if they both end up, balling out, and then, we win or lose on a Tucker field goal or something, like, okay, even. But yeah, if it turns out like the game in, week 3, then yeah, I would I would think that would have to influence it one way.
Yeah. So I don't know,
Yeah.
man. I do think, even after beating Pittsburgh once, I don't want to see them, frankly. They're up there with the Bills and the Chiefs in my, just heartburn. Yeah. Even though I don't respect them the same way, I would have heartburn about them.
Well, and I mean, even though at the end of the game, final score we won comfortably, a couple more 4th down conversions by the Steelers or lack of turnovers, they could have eked out a win there. So, those 2 teams, I think, know each other too well. It's too evenly matched. You much rather the Chargers.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to be speculating here. Do we think the Bengals are going to make it?
I want them to so badly. I think it's the only way we get an AFC Championship game at home, and it'll be against them. Like, that's the only way.
That would be crazy. I mean, with the the shootouts that have happened so far. I mean, now this would be the first matchup that the Ravens would have their new safety pairing against the Bengals this year. But man, would that be? Yeah, that would be something. So, I mean, here's the thing. I do think the Bengals beat the Steelers. I just think the Steelers are done. I think they've been figured out. I think that the Bengals have too much offensive firepower. Now, I know that, a few weeks ago, Russell Wilson had 500 yards passing against the Bengals in their first matchup of the year. So, I mean, that defense isn't great, but I don't know. I still think that the Bengals will get the win there. And then it's just going to come down to, how much it's really going to be interesting what happens in Denver, right? Because the Chiefs, are they going to play their starters? If they play their starters, they probably win. If not, I mean, they're still the Chiefs. I could still see them beating the Broncos there, but you still have to think that the Broncos have a better chance of winning there, right? So I think it's likely that the Broncos get the 7 seed, but I think that it'll be a bit of a sweat for the Broncos because I'm picking the Bengals to win the Saturday night game.
Yeah, you need Bo Nix not to implode.
Yeah, he's been throwing some picks after a very strong rookie year for the most part as of late.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just can't help but think to myself that maybe the reason the Steelers, like this happens all the time, it feels like with them, is in the middle of the season, teams are like, Tom was able to get their guys to play all year long, and maybe like in the middle of the season, teams like underestimate them and they lose. But at the end of the year, man, teams are like, we need to get in the darn playoffs. Okay, like every game like really starts to matter. Like even though we know all the games actually count the same, it just feels different. And I'm like, and that's when they always get beaten because I mean the same thing happened in 2020, right? They were 11-0 and it was like 5 straight. Just like they're not like they're not that good, guys. Like they shouldn't be ahead. And I did the offensive show with Ken and we talked about this topic a little bit with the Steelers. And I was like, I remember when it was 33% chance, like the betting odds, but I was like, I know what this 33% path is, and it feels like the right path. Like they're gonna lose to the Eagles, they're gonna lose to the Chiefs. We'll beat them, and then we kind of control the own destiny, right? Like it just kind of like always felt that way. And now here we are.
Yeah, it's weird because obviously Tomlin said that the Ravens don't like to play all 4 quarters in games, right? Which I think is fair, fair feedback and everything. But I think you can kind of switch it around the Steelers too. It's like, they're able to stay competitive early on, but kind of going to your point, Alec, of like they're not able to close out because that's when the really good teams are then able to like lock in and then showcase their talent. Whereas the Steelers is like they just don't have the same talent level right now. So they kind of end up faltering a little bit. They may still be locked in. Like I'm not saying that like they're checked out by any means. They're not the Aaron Rodgers Jets, but they're just they're not at the same talent level as all the other teams.
Yeah, Peter and Chris, you guys wouldn't fit in their house. The floor is so high and the ceiling is so low, right? Like,
oh man,
we have to be crawling around the whole time.
Is their house in the Shire?
That's right. Turns out they're actually in New Zealand most of the time.
That's the second Hobbit house reference I've made today. The first being that that Jared Goff's rushing ceiling is lower than a Hobbit house.
Oh man.
Oh man. Chris, I really didn't want me to do you dirty, by the way. I really thought it was over between the two of us.
With JMO, yeah.
I know. Like I knew there
unless
was
Laporta is able
like,
to get a touchdown or something.
Like 50 points from these guys, and like I might. I don't know.
Yeah.
This game's
Unless
turning into a
Laporta gets
shootout.
involved.
I know.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise. Brock Purdy's going to bring someone back from the dead. Man.
Yeah, unfortunately, my Brock Purdy team already died, except for this week. So, alas.
Scrambles up the middle for 9 yards touchdown. You got to be kidding me. Yeah, I think you might squeak it out in this one, unless Laporta goes off in the second half. But I think I might be Greg in the other league. So, fingers crossed.
Oh man, championship
We'll
week.
see.
I have to go and like actually tally up everything. Yeah. It's been a wild ride, man. can't believe the season's almost over in the regular season at least.
And playoffs right around the corner, though. It's going to be exciting, man. We've got a lot of good teams this year. I mean, outside of just the Ravens, man. I mean, the NFC with the NFC North teams, that's going to be fun. Eagles, assuming they get Hurts back, they're going to be good. I mean, the Bills and Chiefs are going to be tough as always. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a good postseason, I think.
Yeah. Even if the are the Bucks locked in at this point?
I think they are after last night, right? Oh man, Washington. How can I forget about Washington? Yeah, they're back in the postseason.
Yeah. I mean, I was just gonna say the Bucks, although worse by record, their offense is very
okay.
Exciting,
So the Buccaneers are not locked into the playoffs yet.
Okay.
So they'll still need to. I no time to go through the scenarios. We're not Bucks or Falcons podcast, but I'm sure listeners can look up what needs to happen there. But yeah, the Bucks have a 1-game lead on the Falcons right now.
Okay.
But have not clinched the playoffs.
Right. Yeah. Because of course it's a classic. Like the 4 seeds like worse than every other team in the playoffs currently. So really incredible stuff
on both sides.
Yep. That's just the way it goes, man. It's weird. I feel like the 7th seed has always been lackluster. Like the 2 versus 7, they always get blown out. But this is like the one year where it's like, oh yeah, we want that 7th seed. Like the Packers deserve to be in the to be in the dance. The here it shows the Broncos, but I'm hoping for the Bengals. But I guess we'll see, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. Although if it does turn out to be Miami, then I think we're going to see we're going to see that 7th seed be that team that shouldn't be there. But because I mean, technically, like Denver falls off, but Miami wins, they're in. So
right.
But I don't think they're going to do anything. Not this year.
Oh yeah, guys. Very crazy. Very, very crazy. Shall we do our bold predictions?
Let's go.
I'll start. Bold prediction. 2 picks and a shutout. Score. Bet the under because we're gonna rest our guys early. 31-0.
I like it. I'm gonna be a little more conservative with my score prediction. I'm gonna say the Ravens win 23-9. And for bold prediction, man, there's so much we could say here, but my bold prediction is specifically Josh Johnson throws a touchdown pass to Tez Walker.
Oh, God. Oh, goodness, man.
Which I guess with a 23-9 score prediction might not happen, but I'll get one or the other. Let's go.
Yeah, I feel like
actually I'm erasing it. Hold on, I'm erasing it actually because if it's 23-9 and Josh Johnson in, that doesn't sound good for Lamar. So let's up this to 33-9 and keep the Josh Johnson to Tez Walker touchdown in there.
And it was it was 33-3, and they get field goals.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Oh, good grief, man, that's too funny.
I think they still pull starters in the 4th quarter if it's 25-9 or 26-9.
You're gonna be kicking yourself when Lamar throws that TD pass to Tez Walker.
Well, Lamar's already. This is bold prediction, man. It's predicting that the Ravens will take care of business and give the backups some run.
Turns out to be a 2-touchdown day for Tez Walker. What you got, Chris?
It's the Browns. This is a Mark Andrews game. I'm going to say he finishes with 2 touchdowns for him. And in terms of score prediction, I mean, I'm with you guys. I'm not going to pick the Browns. What do we got? Do I really? 33-31. As much as I think that they're going to put up 30 points, the Browns defense does play us hard. I'll say 28-6 Ravens.
Wow. Well, there you got it. Have it, guys. Ravens should win. Ravens mostly will cover. Yeah. Now they're covering in all these things. Maybe the spread isn't too crazy. And hopefully we get some newspapers on the way out of the stadium this week. AC North Jams.
We might have to leave, not early, but leave
with haste. Yeah,
with haste. Yeah.
yeah. I remember it was a bloodbath last time
to get those.
Yeah, I literally forgot, or I didn't bother because I was like, if it matters, because we were the 1 seed. And I was like, we will get it going to the Super Bowl one, and it didn't matter. So I was like, I will wait in that line. I will also contribute to the bloodbath. I watch Squid Games now. Oh, good grief! But yeah, fun show, guys. Thanks for making it, Peter, on your West Coast time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll be back. Talk playoffs. Very exciting. Next week. Until then, go Ravens.